But I would say that overall 2025 was a successful year. I think anything that like didn't go well was mostly down to circumstances that were kind of out of my control. So because of that, my productivity was really slowed down. And whilst writing was like a happy escape, it didn't change the fact that I was just like a bit depleted in energy and just feeling like very low. And I'm hoping 2026 will be a slightly calmer year in terms of like life events, and therefore I'll be able to be a bit more productive with my writing career. I have had the worst writer's block over the past 2 months. Like, I don't even remember how to write anymore, which is really frustrating because I set myself one really easy task for all of winter, which was to read through draft 3 of Slayer Bride. All I had to do was read through the draft and make some edit notes. But right now, I can't even bear the idea of like opening up my manuscript and reading through my writing. In the past couple of months, the thought of doing that has actually made me feel a bit sick, which I know sounds like really dramatic, but it's just the honest truth. Like, I just can't write right now. I can't work on any sort of writing right now, not even editing, not reading, just not nothing. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Lily. I write fantasy novels, and the past few years I've been working on a like vampire romantasy that I call Slayer Bride. I mean, I call it that because it's the title. But anyway, I'm currently working on draft 4, so I wrote draft 3 all of last year, and right now I'm supposed to be reading through it and making edit notes and replotting it and all that fun stuff. But unfortunately, I have not felt able to do any of that. So draft 4 is currently on pause. However, I was working on it for a while. I got into quite a good routine. I would go to a coffee shop on my lunch break during the week and I'd work on it there. And then over the weekend, I would go to the library and I'd work on it some more. And that writing routine lasted until the beginning of February, when I went through 3 big life changes, one of which was expected. So that was fine. I'd like mentally prepared for that and sort of like, I guess, logistically prepared for it as well. But 2 of them were unexpected. And since then, I have not picked up my manuscript at all, which has made me really sad. I've been meaning to make this video for a couple of weeks now. The first reason I wanted to make it was because I want to document my writing process, and this is a big part of my like writing journey and the journey to finishing this book. And secondly, because I felt like this video would be the first step to me getting out of writer's block. In preparation for making this video and figuring out what it is I actually want to talk about today, I've been doing a lot of journaling, a lot of reflecting, and it has kind of helped me like release the past couple months, or sort of like release the emotions that have come up and the feelings that have come up over the past couple of months. And as a result, I have become clearer on what the next steps are. So I think today is just going to be a talk therapy session where I go over how I got here and how I want to get out of here. So, as I already said, I've gone through a lot of life changes recently, and as a result, my life has been a lot busier. I started a new job, I moved somewhere new, which is why everything is so messy behind me. And I've also been seeing like lots of different groups of people. So I've just had a lot going on. And whenever I have had like a couple seconds to myself, just kind of like be on my own, not doing anything, I just end up like rotting on my bed, doom scrolling, not doing anything like fulfilling, such as like, reading a book or being creative, because I just haven't had the energy. I've just felt really burnt out. So I haven't been able to like pick up a book or pick up some sort of like creative implement like a pen or my laptop, which is really frustrating because being creative or doing something like reading is what fills me with energy, is what fills up my like emotional cup. And I desperately need energy right now. I desperately need my emotional cup to be filled up. But because I don't have the energy to do those activities, I'm staying low on energy. So it's just this weird sort of situation where, I have no energy, but I also can't do the things that give me energy. And because of all of these life changes, my daily routine has completely changed. So that's really thrown me off mentally, emotionally, physically. I can't really figure out like where writing and these sorts of like, I guess, like fun, not necessary activities fit into my day to day life. And I've also kind of been in like shock. So it's like my body's not used to this new life, to its new surroundings, to, all these strange things that are going on, which I think is why I've been really drawn to like these passive activities like doom scrolling in bed, because it's kind of like allowed my body and my mind to like settle into my new life. But I am nearing the end of that now, which is good. I'm feeling more comfortable in my new job and unpacking my room and things like that. So that side of things is sort of calming down a bit. However, I'm kind of struggling to get over the fact that I was in this position, sort of like life change position, only a few months ago in October, where I had a new job then, and I was going through a lot of like similar personal stuff in October to what I went through in February. And I think it just sort of frustrated me that I've gone through like these two big life changes so close together. Life changes that have just completely changed my routine and my mentality and emotional state, and have therefore completely just like effed up my writing routine and my writing habits, which is something that's really important to me. And whilst, as I said, not all of these changes came out of nowhere, like the job I started in October was temporary, so I knew I was going to have to start a new job again sometime in the new year. I didn't see the other things coming. So I was really optimistic that the new writing routine and habits that I put a lot of effort to like build back in November, I was really optimistic that they would stay and they would stick, and the first beginning of the year would be a bit easier than it has been. So on top of everything else that has happened, this like frustration has really contributed to my low mood. One thing I will say that has been really useful over the past few weeks is seeing how my mood impacts my writing productivity. I know a lot of people say that when they have like turbulent things going on in their life, that actually really positively impacts their writing. They almost come out like this writing shell, and then the creativity sort of becomes more creative because they've got all of this emotion behind it, all this like really intense emotional self expression that produces beautiful writing. However, that's definitely not the case with me. I'm very much a happy writer. I write when I'm happy, which I think I always knew subconsciously, but I didn't notice the pattern fully until very recently. I was able to finally see that whenever something went, I guess, wrong in my life, all of my energy, all of my emotions, all of my mental focus, and I guess like physical activity would go onto that area of my life that wasn't working or was changing and transforming. And I had absolutely no energy or space to focus on my writing. So I was busy and burnt out from life events, but also when I'm in the midst of like a sad time in life, I'm just very uninspired. And I think that's because the books that I write are happy. Like even if the character's going through terrible, awful things, there's always a happy ending. There's always hope and love and sort of like a positive message that I hope comes through in the writing. So whenever I'm going through something sad, I just don't feel inspired to write something happy. And obviously, sad events are good in the sense that, when I come out the other side of things, I think going through those sad life experiences does inspire my writing, but just not when I'm in the middle of it. In order for me to write a book where I'm talking about there being light at the end of a dark tunnel, I have to be in a situation where I'm experiencing light at the end of a dark tunnel. Otherwise, I just find it really, I don't know, just I feel a bit bitter. I feel too bitter to write about happiness when I'm unhappy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But the frustrating thing about having a low mood and the low mood leading to me not writing is that I know that the number one thing that will make me happy is writing. It's very similar to what I said earlier about like writing kind of like curing my burnout a little bit. It also just cures my low mood. So again, it's like I'm stuck in this cycle where I'm unhappy, so I'm not writing. And then because I'm not writing, I am unhappy. And it's just, and because I haven't been writing in so long, I've developed an almost phobia of it. it feels really strange and just unfamiliar to me. And yeah, the idea of writing just feels so unnatural. The idea of like right now, like standing up and going to sit on my desk and taking out my printed manuscript and writing edit notes in it, that to me just feels so strange and unfamiliar, and that my body kind of like tenses up and doesn't want to do it. So when thinking about what to do next and how to like return to creativity, I have to think about not only just, burning out and making sure that I'm not ridding myself of all my energy and pushing myself too hard, as well as my low mood, and making sure that, I'm in the right positive headspace to write. I also, on top of these two things, have to consider making writing feel like natural to me and like reacquainting myself with it again. And once I get back into the writing habit and I start doing it again, like I don't think it will take too long for me to feel comfortable writing and feel like it's something I've done for eons and years and whatnot. It won't take me too long to get back to that stage, but it's just pushing through the first bit, forcing myself to sit down at that desk, forcing myself to type those few words or like write down those first few edit notes. That's going to be really difficult. But one thing I have found really interesting is that whilst I don't have this natural impulse to write creatively anymore, I do have this like gut instinct and desire to journal a lot, which is really interesting. So doing another form of writing. And when I do journal, I just find that it really helps me to like clear my mind and rid myself of like the weight and the like negative emotions that are sort of like keeping me trapped in this state. So that's something I just found really interesting and I might consider when thinking about what to do next. So when thinking about how to get back into writing again, I need to think about making myself happy, which is important because I cannot write when I'm unhappy. Making sure that I have energy and that I'm not burnt out or burning myself out. And also just focusing on making sure that I have like the space to write and the space to feel comfortable writing again, which I haven't recently. I'm very like unfamiliar in this room still, even though I have been here for a couple of weeks now. But I haven't written in here yet, so I don't associate the space with writing. And I'm not fully unpacked. I'm very close, but I'm not fully unpacked. And I find that when I've got like a clean, tidy room, that's when I find that my mind can really like switch off and be creative. So I just need to make sure I unpack basically and tidy up the space a bit. And as I've already mentioned, journaling is also something that I find really helpful for like stabilizing my mood, processing my emotions. But I think it could also be like a good warm up for writing, like journaling before a session, getting myself into that sort of like mindset, and then switching from journaling, which is something that for whatever reason I do want to do right now, into creatively writing, which is something that also want to do because it helps me towards my goals. I don't have like natural desire to do yet. So I think like transitioning from journaling into writing could be really good, and it will help me to get into that like writing mindset. I think it's also important moving forward that I don't set myself any goals. I don't say to myself like, oh, in this session you have to write like 1,000 words. Today you have to read through 10 pages. I think it's important that I say not to set myself any goals, but I think it's important that I set myself something that's like an easy win. So, for example, reading through one paragraph and making one edit note in the margin. Something I know for a fact I can do no matter what's going on in my life. I think it's important to set myself those sorts of writing goals because in the past I found that that's led to me being way more productive than when I set myself these really ambitious goals, like, writing X thousand number of words every single day for 30 days. Those things, whilst I find them motivating and fun, and sometimes I do accomplish them, sometimes on those bad days where I'm not feeling like writing, I'm way less likely to do any writing because I'll be so overwhelmed by the lofty goal of like doing something really big. Meanwhile, an easy win, even on a bad day, I will do it. I'll be far more likely to do it because I know that no matter what I can read through one paragraph. I can write one sentence. I can do that. So I'm more likely to attempt it. And normally, once I started writing, I started working on my project, I will just get into the flow of it and I will end up doing way more than that tiny goal I originally set myself out to do. So, right now, I don't know what my writing's gonna look like months from now. And I'm trying to make peace with that because I love kind of mapping out my year and knowing roughly where I'm going to be in the summer, in autumn, in winter. But I just think right now it just doesn't make sense for me to set these lofty, far in the future writing goals when I don't even know where I'm going to be 1 week from now. I do think that tomorrow is going to be the first day that I attempt writing again, and I'm very excited about that. But even if the day doesn't go as planned, I've decided that's going to be okay as well. So I guess I'll see what happens.